"You'll never be enough for the life I want," she said. "I deserve someone richer." She didn't shout it. She didn't cry. Her voice was level, almost bored, as if she were commenting on the weather or picking a new brand of toothpaste. We were standing in the driveway of our rented townhome, the one with the cracked stucco and the dying lavender bush by the mailbox. I had just come home from work, sweaty, tired, my hands still smudged with grease from the shop, and she was waiting, arms folded, suitcase by her feet. I remember the sun that evening. It was low and gold, casting long shadows across the pavement. But her words cast a longer one. I deserve someone richer. There it was. After 5 years together, after 3 of those married, that was my exit interview. No warning, no real conversation, just a verdict. Like a judge dismissing a case before hearing the evidence. I didn't argue. I couldn't. You don't negotiate with someone who's already walked out the door emotionally. So I nodded, just once, and walked past her into the house. Inside, her scent still clung to the furniture, to the throw pillows, to the towel hanging on the bathroom rack. I sat on the couch we picked out at the outlet store, stared at the spot on the wall where we had planned to hang wedding photos we never got framed. I thought of all the nights we stayed up, dreaming of building something together. Something that felt like ours. But I guess ours only mattered when the account balance made her feel secure. She moved out that night. I didn't watch her leave. I heard the trunk slam, the engine start, and then silence. A different kind of silence. The kind that follows a funeral. Because in many ways, something did die that night. I didn't drink. I didn't rage. I just sat in the dark until morning came through the blinds like an unwanted truth. That week, I went through the motions. Work, eat, sleep. Barely. But my mind was doing something else entirely. Rewinding. Analyzing. Not just what she said, but what I had missed. The signs. The casual mentions of her co-worker Travis and his weekend home in Napa. The way she started dressing just a bit more carefully when she left for meetings. The second phone I stumbled on once and was told it was for work emergencies. And I ignored it. I ignored it all. Because love, when you believe it's real, makes you complicit in your own delusion. The real hit didn't come until 2 weeks later. I came across a photo online. A party in the hills. Flashy suits, rented smiles. And there she was, in the arms of a man I'd only seen once. At her company gala, back when I was still allowed to be proud of her. Travis. His hand resting low on her back, too familiar. Her smile not wide, but content. Comfortable. Like she belonged there. It was then I realized I'd never belonged in her world. I was a stepping stone. A safe bet until the real gamble came through. But here's the thing. When someone tells you you're not enough, you have 2 choices. You either believe them, or you build. I chose the latter. I sold the truck. The one I'd been pouring time into. Took that money and bought a 1-year coding boot camp. Worked nights. Lived cheap. I turned off the world and turned on the grind. Didn't tell anyone. No Instagram. No updates. Just momentum in silence. A year later, I had my first software job. Entry level. Nothing flashy. But I saved. And I studied harder than I ever did in school. I treated every challenge like it owed me for the hurt I swallowed. The second year, I joined a startup. Got lucky. Equity. The third year, that startup got bought. Really lucky. I didn't spend it. I reinvested. Stocks. Properties. Silent partnerships. I stayed in my 1-bedroom and lived like I was still broke. Because part of me still was. Not in the wallet, but in the heart. And then, in year 4, something unexpected happened. I fell in love again. Not with a woman, not yet. But with an idea. I wanted to build homes. Not houses. Homes. For people like me, who'd been told they weren't enough. So I did. Quietly. Brick by brick, deal by deal. I partnered with a friend from the coding world who had a knack for real estate. Together, we created something small, but special. And in year 5, I bought the land. A corner lot with an old, beaten-up estate. Gutted it. Rebuilt it. Designed every inch myself. A mansion? Sure. But not for flexing. For meaning. The kind of place that whispered, you were always enough. They just couldn't see it. That was when she reached out. A DM. Simple. Saw you on Forbes. Congrats. No apology. No reflection. Just curiosity laced with regret. I didn't reply. Not yet. The message sat unread for a week. I won't lie and say I wasn't tempted. I reread it at least a dozen times. Each time hoping the words would magically change. maybe add an apology, a trace of accountability, something human. But they never did. Just, saw you on Forbes. Congrats. It felt like someone tapping on the glass of a life they once discarded, curious if it still breathed. I didn't reply. Not then. Not because I was angry, but because I wasn't ready. I had spent so long climbing out of the hole she left me in, I didn't want to risk even brushing my fingers against the dirt again. But life has a funny way of setting the stage without your permission. A month later, I got invited to a charity gala in our hometown. Black tie. Hosted in the country club where we once crashed a wedding for free cake and laughter that felt like it would never fade. I almost declined. But then I saw the list of confirmed attendees. Her name was right there. Third line. +1. No last name for the +1. I said yes. The day of the gala, I pulled up in a vintage Jaguar. Not rented. Restored. By me. My hands. My hours. My quiet therapy between board meetings and blueprints. I wore a tailored navy tux, subtle but sharp. Nothing too loud. Just clean. Confident. And I wasn't alone. Her name was Celine. No, not a replacement. Not a trophy. She was someone who knew me after the fall. Who met me when I was still working from coffee shops and second-guessing my worth. Someone who loved my quiet more than my ambition. Who once held my hand after a rough pitch meeting and said, "Even if the world doesn't get it yet, I do." That's the kind of woman you bring to a gala when your past might be watching. We walked in together, hand in hand. Not performative. Just natural. The room buzzed. People turned. Whispers passed. And then, I saw her. Across the room. In a red dress, still radiant. Still poised. Still holding court like the queen of a castle she didn't own. She hadn't noticed me yet. So I waited. Talked to donors. Laughed with old acquaintances who barely recognized the man I'd become. I wasn't trying to make a scene. I just didn't mind being seen. When our paths finally crossed near the silent auction table, it was almost cinematic. She did a double take. Eyes widened. And for a second, just a flicker, she smiled. Not warmly. More cautiously. Like someone trying to determine if the fire in front of them is a candle or a forest blaze. "You look different," she said. I nodded. "You don't." Her eyes scanned me, then Celine. She hesitated, then offered her hand. "I'm glad you're doing well." I took a breath, steady and calm. "I'm doing better than well." A pause. "Who's your friend?" she asked, nodding toward Celine, who had politely stepped aside to grab us drinks. "My partner," I said. "She's the architect behind our last 3 properties." Her lips tightened. "So you finally made it, huh?" I shrugged. I made peace. The rest followed. Her expression changed. Just slightly. A softness trying to surface, like guilt testing the air. "I didn't mean what I said back then," she offered. "You did," I replied. "And that's okay." She looked down, then up again. I was scared. The bills. The uncertainty. I just thought there had to be more. "There was more," I said, meeting her eyes. "You just didn't wait long enough to see it." Celine returned, handing me a glass of red. I introduced her with a quiet pride that didn't need to boast. We walked away without drama. No raised voices. No tears. Just the sound of heels on marble and a woman left behind, staring at the life she once deemed unworthy. Outside, the air was cool. Crisp. Honest. Celine looked up at me. "That her?" I nodded. "The one who said I'd never be enough." She smiled softly, slipping her arm through mine. "Funny. You're the most enough man I've ever met." And just like that, I realized something. The mansion, the money, the success, they were milestones. But this? Standing in that driveway again, holding a different hand, this was closure. Not because she saw what she lost, but because I finally saw what I gained. 2 weeks passed after the gala. I didn't think much about her after that. Not because I was forcing myself to move on, but because I genuinely had. The version of me that once waited for her texts, wondered what more he needed to do to be loved. He was gone. Buried quietly in the foundation of a life I built stone by stone. But closure, I've learned, doesn't always come clean. Sometimes it knocks one last time, just to be sure the door is really closed. It was a Tuesday when I heard the knock. I had just finished a call with a contractor. We were reviewing designs for a youth shelter I was funding in the city. My house, the mansion she'd probably seen in the article, sat quietly behind me, all glass and light and trees that swayed like they'd heard my story and rooted harder because of it. When I opened the door, There she was. Olivia. Hair a little less polished. Eyes a little more tired. I know I shouldn't be here, she said quickly, like a thief asking for forgiveness mid-break-in. But I just needed to see it. With my own eyes. I didn't move to let her in. I stood in the doorway, the breeze carrying the faint scent of the orange blossoms from the garden behind me. She glanced over my shoulder, eyes scanning the foyer, the staircase, the high windows she once used to joke we'd never afford. You really did all this, she said softly. I did, I answered. With her? I followed her eyes, saw where her mind was wandering. No, I said. With time, with effort, with mistakes, and yes, eventually, with her. She looked down, took a shaky breath. I think about that day sometimes. When I left, I told myself I was chasing something better, but I think I was just running from the fear that maybe I wasn't meant to build anything real. I didn't answer. She looked up. I was wrong about you. I met her gaze, calm. You weren't. Not then. You just didn't stay long enough to see who I'd become. A long silence stretched between us. I don't want anything, she said quickly. Not money. Not a second chance. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. That landed heavier than I expected. Maybe because I never thought I'd hear it. Maybe because part of me had stopped needing it. I nodded once. Thank you. She looked back at her car, took a step down the porch, then turned one last time. I always thought love meant ease, comfort. But maybe real love is about staying when it's hard, building when it's broken. I could have said a lot then. About how she hurt me. About the nights I sat in that broken-down apartment wondering what I did wrong. But none of it would have changed anything. So I just said, yeah, maybe. She walked away, and I let her. Not because I was being noble, but because that was her story to carry now. I stepped back inside, the click of the door sounding more like a seal than a slam. Celine was upstairs, barefoot, sketching something on the patio. She looked up and smiled, not asking who it was, not needing to. She trusted me, and that trust was the kind of wealth I had never known until her. That night, we sat out back under the soft glow of garden lights, sipping wine and watching the stars flirt with the skyline. Do you ever think about what might have been? She asked, not out of jealousy, just curiosity. I thought about the driveway, the red dress, the apology, and then I thought about the woman beside me, who met me with no mansion, no magazine feature, no promise of riches. Just a heart still mending and hands willing to help stitch it together. I turned to her and said, I used to, but not anymore. Because sometimes, the best version of your life doesn't come when you prove someone wrong. It comes when you prove yourself right. And when you hand over the key, not to someone who demands more, but to someone who sees what's already there and stays.